guys and gals, and welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we, as always, take a look at a creepypasta, and a more traditional gaming creepypasta this time called Dreamer N64. So sit back and enjoy some Dreamer N64.
I'm a completionist, meaning that whenever I start a game, I have to finish it and complete any challenge and get every award. Because of this, I've noticed a lot of creepy things in video games. An example of this is in Legend of Zelda 2. You know the guy in one of the towns, the one who says, "I am error"? Well, if you leave that town and pace back and forth twice and then get into 2 battles in a specific area, for about 5 seconds the words "error controls you" will appear on the screen. Every creepy Easter egg or glitch I would ever see couldn't prepare me for a game that I would get in the future. About 3 months ago, I took a week-long vacation to New York. My brother, who lives in Manhattan, offered to let me stay there, so I wouldn't have to buy a hotel room. Basically, the entire week it was just me wandering throughout New York while my brother was at work. The only time I really saw him was in the morning or at night. On my last day in New York, however, my brother had the day off of work. We had planned to spend the day in New York City, but it was downpouring, so we just stayed inside and hung out. Later on in the day, he brought out our old N64 with all of our old favorite games. We played classics like GoldenEye and Mario Kart, and lesser-known games like Spider-Man and Ready to Rumble Boxing. We played all night long and finally went to bed at 1. The next morning, I packed up my stuff and headed home, realizing how much fun I had. On my way home, I decided I was going to buy an N64. I got back to my apartment around 2:00 p.m. and got settled in. Once I was all set, I grabbed $30 and went to my local retro game/comic book store, Comically Speaking. That was the name of the store. I bought an N64 for $25 and went back to my apartment. I immediately opened up the box the system came in and took out my system. It was painted gold and was awesome. Then I took out the games that came with it: GoldenEye, Wave Racer 64, 1080 snowboarding, and a game I'd never heard of called Dreamer N64. The cover was a man in a straight jacket floating on balloons. He had a weird, somewhat creepy expression on his face. He had a smile that stretched across. He had pitch white skin and dark circles around the eyes. He looked mentally insane. The cover creeped me out, so I put the cartridge face down on the floor. I hooked up the system and got ready to play. I was originally going to play Wave Racer 64, but then I caught a glimpse of Dreamer in the corner of my eye. I wondered what the game was about and put Wave Racer down. I picked up Dreamer and put it into the system. It was sort of like I was hypnotized, but I didn't want to play it. However, when the N64 logo appeared, my completionist side kicked in, and I got ready to play this mysterious game. The title screen was just a blue sky with clouds all around. Then the man from the cover floated up on balloons. I got a chill down my spine. He looked at the screen and a muffled sound came up. The only words I could make out were "welcome" and "dream on." The rest sounded like white noise, but I could tell it was saying something. After that, the words "Dreamer" appeared. It looked like a first grader wrote it with crayons. Then, in blinking red at the bottom, it said "press start." I did. And then a loud piano key note played. The man gave me a mean look, and then all of his balloons had popped. He started falling and screaming, and right before he hit the ground, the screen faded to black. I sat there in silence, staring back at the black screen for about a minute. Then finally, it stopped. The black faded to a bedroom where the man was sleeping. He woke up and was violently shaking. He then sat up, got out of bed, and stared at the screen. Again, a muffled sound came, except it was a bit easier to understand this time. I could tell the man was talking, and that he had a British accent. I could make out that he said, "Nothing much, just had a bad dream, just had a bad dream." The rest sounded like white noise. The man sort of looked like a clay model. He then paused and just stared at the camera for a good 15 seconds. Then once again the muffled sound had come back. This time it was hard to hear. I could barely make out this: "I didn't much sleep, tired." The man then crawled into his bed and fell asleep. The screen faded to black, and then the controls flashed on the screen. Then it said, "Level 1, get ready." And it faded to a field. There were flowers everywhere, and the sky was blue. Butterflies were flying everywhere, and there was the man on the other side of the screen. An arm popped out of the straitjacket. The arm was wrinkly and bony. It was holding a net. Soon, a paragraph came up on the screen explaining that the point of the game was to catch as many butterflies as you can within a minute. In the first level, you had to catch a minimum of 10 to win. It seemed simple enough, so I pressed A and then I was able to start. The game was somewhat of a side-scroller because you could only go in one direction, forward. The game was incredibly easy, and I collected 25 butterflies. Time ran out and another muffled sound came up. It said, "You win." And the screen faded to black. Once again, I was in the man's bedroom and he woke up. He looked at the screen and I could understand what he said other than "finally dream." Then he stared once again. Then
again. White noise blared through the screen and the man fell asleep. I was brought back by how loud it was. Then it said level 2. It was exactly the same as level 1, except I had to collect 20 butterflies. The same exact thing happened every level, gradually increasing how many butterflies I had to catch. After the 4th level, I seriously contemplated to stop playing, ignoring my completionist side. But I couldn't. I just couldn't. I was so bored, I cursed being a completionist. The man woke up once again, except the game glitched out. A screech blared through the television and the man started glitching all over the place, and then he went over the screen. The screech stopped and he just stared. The room turned black. It's just the man stared at me. His pupils rolled into his head and his smile turned into a scowl. Words flashed on the screen asking, "Do you wish to continue?" I chose yes, and the white noise blared again. Then it said level 5, prepare or perish. The man once again was in the field holding the net. Now the handle was covered in spikes. A tear ran down the man's face as blood trickled down his hand. There now was a 30-second time limit, but I had to catch only 10 butterflies. I noticed in the field that the flowers were withered and music was playing. It sounded somewhat like a broken Jack in the Box. I started the level and it was a huge jump from the last few. It was almost impossible. I was only able to catch 2 butterflies. The time ran out and the screen went black. I heard a scream and then an image flashed on the screen for about 2 seconds. I could see that it was a man holding a torch. The screen went into a room. It was dim, only being lit by a dying light bulb. The walls were gray and I could see a small table that had a knife, a drill, and a syringe. The man woke up and he looked down the screen and cried. The man walked in. He was wearing a shirt that had bloodstains all over it. He said something, but all I could hear was, "Test subject 402. Dangerous. Kill. Careful." The man with the bloody shirt grabbed the syringe and jabbed it into the man's neck. They never said his name, so I just call him subject 402. Based off what the other man said. The man started crying and then he went to sleep. He was in the field again. The sky was cloudy and gray. There were also no flowers. I had 20 seconds and I had to collect 15 butterflies this time. Subject 402 was bleeding and walking instead of running. It was impossible. I couldn't beat the level. Time ran out and the screen cut to black. It was hard to hear, but I think it sounded like a man begging for mercy. The words, level 7, why, showed up on the screen. There was a 10-second time limit. Had to collect 90 butterflies. The game was literally impossible. The grass was gone, the butterflies were all black, and Subject 402 was just shambling, and then crawling. He's dripping blood. The screen cut to black again and the words final level. Revenge is needed. The level was completely different. Subject 402 was chasing the man. I had to catch up to him before the time ran out. I did, and once again, the screen faded to black. It then went into the room. The man had his neck slit and was on the floor gasping for air. Subject 402 woke up. He looked at his hands and cried. One hand was a drill and the other hand was missing fingers and was distorted. He then killed himself with a drill hand. The screen then froze, then went into static. Words were displayed on the screen. Congratulations, you win. I was horrified and I haven't played the N64 since then. The next day I talked to my friend who's worked with Nintendo for about 15 years. I went to his house. He was doing some character designs for the next Mario game. I asked him if he had ever heard of the game Dreamer 64. He stopped drawing and gave me a confused look. He asked me how I knew about it and I told him it came with my system. He almost jumped out of his chair. According to him, Dreamer 64 is supposed to be a kid's game for the N64, however, one day early in development. The creator of the game had this mental breakdown and went missing. His team was able to complete the 4th level, but then gave up because of lack of inspiration and budgeting problems. He then showed me a picture of the creator. He was Subject 402.
What a return to the old traditional gaming creepypasta. Nostalgia boner, buys game, plays it, finds it fucked up, and then never plays again. You may think I'm ragging on it, but I'm really not. It's one of the most popular structures and it works, believe it or not. Now, like always, let me bring out the cliches. They're strong, such as never playing the N64 again. But I can forgive it just a bit because it works with the structure. But again, just a bit, because if I saw something fucked up in a video game, I wouldn't stop playing video games altogether. It'd have to be really messed up. Not even Ben Drowned is that messed up. Now, it reminds me of the conspiracy pastas such as We Are Twisted, along with the Nintendo similarity, but one thing I really didn't like was that fucking ending. I had a friend working on Nintendo for 15 years, and then this hidden project that was never leaked out or made somewhat evident to the public is sort of laughable. I mean, I googled it up. There's no such fucking thing as Dreamer N64. And it kills the whole feel of it. Like pulling the wrong block out of a Jenga tower. Annoying. I mean, it's that one little thing, the little problem that just destroys the whole thing in a way. Now, as far as the whole thing is considered, it sounded like the average fare, and it was interesting, the game, jumping after every level, sort of giving this morbid AVI feeling, getting more and more sinister with the butterflies and the intensity of the challenge. If it stuck with this chapter more, I really would have liked it, and if we got some screenshots even doctored up, fucking legendary. Plus, I do have a little bias for conspiracy theories and lost paraphernalia pastas. That being said, it doesn't overstay its welcome, but it also doesn't take any risks to do something else as opposed to staying with tradition. While it's not bad, it's certainly not the best, and the ending could use some retooling and stay a little more vague. Just to be a little realistic. I'm not saying creepypastas are realistic, but it needs to have some sense of it too in its, world. It can't be balls to the wall fiction. As far as raw technicality is considered, I don't really go over this as much now, but N64 games, a game like this, I would probably call the upper, tier of N64 titles. It sounds like it has a lot going on. Again, I don't have all the technicality to work with here. It's not simply a ROM hack, but if it is a real N64 game, it's one of the top rated. It's one of the top technical N64 games, I guess I would have to say. But this has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. And again, let us know what you think in the comments below. What would you rate this, and what would you change to make it better? This is me, Mudahar, and I am out.